or he has to be transported by the Marshals Service.
There were some new elements in the charges regarding his working with his business manager to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to conceal and hide those tapes from decades ago from coming out. Your response to those new charges?
Well, we'll see what the discovery is. They could say whatever they want about things going on, and I haven't seen any evidence yet, so I don't really feel comfortable saying anything about it. I haven't seen any evidence that he did anything like that. They also, in that same indictment, allege that he paid a large sum of money to his business manager to cover things up, which I know was a settlement of a lawsuit when the business manager sued him. So I'm not sure how much credibility to put in any of those allegations. I'm sorry, what? Well, who says they're a victim? I mean, you know, when people look at there are people who yeah, right. There's 6 new ones. We'll see what the proof is. They've charged them in New York with enticing people and encouraging people to have sex with them. I don't think people accidentally have sex, so I'm not really sure what the criminal activity is there.
Are you concerned about the racketeering part of the indictment?
Well, but it's not underage. These are adults that they've said. In that indictment, they have counts in that indictment where they say that he encouraged and enticed adults to have sex with him. And it does say that, and I haven't seen any evidence of any of that. I mean, people can say whatever they want. Well, hold on one second. What we know is we know that all of these charges are decades old, and all of a sudden people are coming forward. And we see what happens in those cases all the time, and we're going to wait and see what happens with the evidence. We're going to wait and see what proof they have. We're going to challenge the proof, and we're going to press on because he didn't do anything wrong. Yes, ma'am.
There's several unnamed individuals listed in the indictment. Do you know who those people are? Whether they work for Mr. Kelly?
I have no idea. I have no. That's part of the problem is we've got John Doe 1 and John Doe 2 and unnamed 1 and individual A and B, and we don't know who these people are. So, you know.
You don't know, or you can't say?
I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are.
Prosecutors didn't tell you that?
Prosecutors, I know exactly what you know. I have an indictment that is allegations that alleges somebody did something wrong. That's all I have is allegations. He's presumed innocent. We believe he's innocent. We're going to fight to prove he's innocent.
It looks like the client's going to spend the weekend behind bars.
Right.
How's he feeling about that?
Well, how would you feel about spending the weekend behind bars? I mean, no one ever wants to be behind bars. Unfortunately, under federal law, if the government requests in certain kinds of cases, they can hold you and delay your bail hearing for 3 to 5 days. So that's what's going on here, 3 to 5 business days.
In light of the fact that this is the third time this year that Mr. Kelly has been brought up on some charges, February, May, and now again in July. What is his state of mind at this point in light of these new charges?
I mean, I'm amazed that he hasn't had a complete breakdown in the face of all of this and the pressure. And the pressure on his career is basically, in many respects, it's collapsed. He hasn't been able to tour. He keeps finding himself getting charged with things. I think it's the worst case of piling on I've ever seen. Let us do a case. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's get to the truth, and then let's move on.
What would he say to the alleged victims? What would he say to the alleged victims?
What would he say?
Yes.
He wouldn't say anything to him.
If he's ordered held, does he stay at the OCC, or because of the Cook County case, is there a chance he'd go to the Cook County jail?
So I've had people who, but he's out on bond on the Cook County charges. So as long as that bond remains in full force, they can't hold him in the Cook County jail. But I've had people with state and federal charges. Sometimes they're held in federal custody and they bring them to state. Sometimes they're in state custody and they bring them to fed. I don't have any control over that.
Would he be able to make bond if a Judge Lionweber here would have said a very high bond? Does he have any money?
Well, so bail in the federal system is rarely monetarily based. The question is whether there are conditions which would assure that he would appear on the charges. So the question for the judge is, can he formulate conditions? I think there certainly are conditions. Look, if the man was going to flee to avoid prosecution, he'd have been long gone. You mean the guy in Pennsylvania? The guy who was cleaning his garage and you know, we never heard from again? I don't put any credence in what that guy said.
Do you worry about the racketeering charges alleging that this was a criminal enterprise that was really trying to serve?
I think it's an abuse of the RICO laws, you know, saying that someone was a musician and that there was backstage parties and there were groupies and so forth. That's essentially what it is that they've charged as a racketeering enterprise. I think it's a scary use of that law.
And is the charge here kind of the feds getting a second bite at the apple, saying we're charging child pornography, it's really not double jeopardy? Do you think it's unfair piling on?
I think it's unfair piling on. I think that's a fair statement, yes. It's going to have to. So we're still putting together whoever's going to be. We didn't get any advance notice of any of this. Had they given us notice, certainly Mr. Kelly would have come, just as he did in state court and voluntarily turned himself in. He was out walking his dog last night, as you know, when he was arrested. We had people in place in case he was charged here. We'll work on the New York situation. We'll work on the New York situation. I know Doug was in a motorcycle accident, so that's why he hasn't been around.
What do they do with the dog when they pick him up?
With the dog? I think they gave the dog to one of his friends, but the dog's name is Believe. Believe. The dog's name is Believe. That would be between me and Mr. Kelly. I will say, I mean, I got there moments after he was arrested. They were, I would commend, and I'm not someone who often commends law enforcement, but I would commend them. They were very discreet, very quiet, very polite. They didn't make a big hubbub or anything like that. Also, Mr. Kelly was totally cooperative with them. You've seen how he acts in court. He has great respect for the law enforcement officials. He has great respect for prosecutors, great respect for the judiciary. So I think they cuff everybody when they arrest them. I think they were people from New York City. I don't know who was. They had badges. I didn't write down who was state, who was federal, who was Chicago, and who was not. I try and limit my interaction. All right, everyone have a nice weekend.